Whittaker stops Liam Cameron in the second round of their rematch to silence the doubters and get revenge over his opponent after their controversial draw 6 months ago. In this video, I'm going to be discussing all the tactics and controversy from the fight. I'm going to break down how Ben Whittaker was able to win the fight so much more easily than people were anticipating, as well as discussing whether or not the fight was called off too early, and Ben Whittaker's antics after the final bell. Hello everyone and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Guys, before I start this video, thank you very much to those of you that joined me for the live stream. We were in the fight room, as I'm now calling it, and it was sick. I enjoyed it a lot. Really good crowd of people. We had a good discussion, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everybody that joined me. This was a stunning performance from Ben Whittaker, and I have to say that, you know, I'm kind of at the beginning of my journey with all this still, and people sometimes refer to me as an analyst, and I never really feel like one, but I have to say that I was really delighted with the way that Whittaker fought here because he did a lot of the things that I said in my game film analysis before the fight. And I guess that does make me feel a bit more like an analyst, so that is very pleasing. But I definitely did not see an early stoppage for Ben Whittaker being on the cards. I didn't rule it out as a thing, but I thought it was probably the most unlikely scenario, and that's what the bookies had as being the most unlikely scenario as well. So it was an absolutely brilliant performance from Ben Whittaker, and you can't take anything away from him here. But we do have controversy to talk about. We do have to discuss whether or not it should have been stopped when it was the fight. But we will do that towards the end of this video because to begin with, I want to break down the fight, how I thought the two men would come in, and then I want to break down what I actually saw in there from a tactical perspective, and I will get some game film in there to show you guys what I'm talking about. Normally I do a post-fight reaction and then a game film analysis, but there's so much stuff coming up this week with Eubank and Ben. I'm going to try and merge the two together. So you're going to get some of my thoughts, and then I'm actually going to technically and tactically show you what was happening in there. So going into this one, I felt that Liam Cameron didn't really need to change too much. It was such a good performance last time out. He made Whittaker work so hard that the onus really was on Ben Whittaker to change before this fight. And I constantly kept talking about that. How much can Ben Whittaker change? And the answer was he could change a lot. He improved so much coming into this one. And like I said before, it wasn't necessarily a case of being better, it was a case of being different. And often different can be better or often is better, but the reality is it was about changing the way that he did things, changing the way that he performed in this fight. I said before the fight that he would have to use measuring a lot more, he'd have to use his lead hand a lot more and just be busier with it in general, more lateral movement, more small movements to make Liam Cameron miss by inches rather than making these big, athletic, energy-sapping movements. I said he'd have to stop loading up so much and, you know, just stop hitting the high guard. I also pointed out the weaknesses in Liam Cameron's high guard around the side and up the middle. And this is exactly what we saw. So I'll break it down bit by bit before we go into the stoppage and discussing whether or not that was premature. So the first thing we saw throughout this fight was the measuring. And just to explain what measuring is when you extend your lead hand just to check where your opponent is. That can be in the form of a very light jab, but generally you hold your lead hand there a little bit longer than you would with the jab. You're not looking to bring it straight back to your chin. And it just allows you to control the distance. And this was something that we saw Ben Whittaker doing multiple times in the first round of this fight. And indeed, what it does is it just stops the onslaught from Liam Cameron. It stops him from just marching straight into your range. And it just allows you to be more methodical in the way that you reposition your feet. And one of the big keys for Ben Whittaker in this fight was the foot positioning, the repositioning of the feet constantly, the little half steps back. I talk about the half steps being taken back. It's the counter puncher's footwork. You need to create a little bit of space and then you can fire your shots in. And it can even be okay to move in a straight line if you're making them fall short and then you can counter them. Straight lines often are not good, but we're talking more when you're moving backwards. You're not looking to move back to set up a shot. It's more when you're moving backwards in a straight line and they can just, you know, lunge forward and get you when you're on a retreat, especially if you've got your chin in the air. But that movement back, those little half steps, I'll explain why they were important in a moment, but they set up the finish. The other thing that he did much better in this fight was lateral movement. So he did a lot of lateral movement last fight too, but it was too athletic, it was too bouncy for one, but also he made a key adjustment to that lateral movement, and that is, as he was moving, as he generally moves clockwise, I did warn Whittaker pre-fight that moving clockwise too much would be too predictable, and he did go the other way sometimes too. Generally speaking, he was moving clockwise, but the good thing about moving clockwise was it took him outside of Liam Cameron's right hand, but also what he was doing, which was very clever, as he moved clockwise, he was using that measure, that lead hand measure, to touch Cameron's backhand so that he couldn't fire it off. It was a tactic that Tyson Fury used in the second Wilder fight where he would enter the pocket jabbing Wilder's right hand so as to keep it at his face. And it's a very clever strategy because it means that he can't fire it off while Whittaker's on the move. Definitely not as easily anyway because he's controlling that backhand. So that was very smart. It meant that pivot out to the clockwise direction, out to Whittaker's left-hand side, it was generally a safe exit for him. And indeed, he was using that lateral movement very well. He was mixing it up with his jabs. He'd jab, and there was always a bit of lateral movement or a little half step back at the end of everything that he did. And that jab also was extremely important. There was a couple of moments where he jabbed upstairs to the guard, occupying it, and then he fired it downstairs to the body, which is one of the 3 contact points that I have made you aware of here. And I'll show you here in the footage. There's 3 contact points. You got it behind the gloves, you got it up the middle of the body, and then around the side of the body. Those are the kind of key areas that Liam Cameron exposes with his high guard. But the jab was absolutely crucial here, and he peppered him with the jab. Liam Cameron's nose was bloodied by the end of the first round, and it was a good shot for him. Even when it wasn't landing super clean, it just helped him to stay busy and control the action. And a fighter that I talked about before this fight that works with Andy Lee, and the reason I thought Andy Lee would be so great, one was Joseph Parker, uses fantastic lateral movement, but the other was Paddy Donovan. And he's not someone that we talk about a lot, Paddy Donovan, but that fight against Crocker, he did all the things I'm talking about: constant foot movement, constant lateral movement, constantly using a busy jab, not loading up with it too much. And something that Whittaker did too much in that first fight was fire heavy shots into the gloves of Liam Cameron, which were all blocked. And it helps to gas you. You don't need to be hitting the gloves that hard. It's pointless, actually. And all it does is make you sit down on your shots more and make you more of a static target in the pocket. But something that Paddy Donovan does very well is that constant foot movement, that constant jabbing, the constant repositioning. I showed you it before the fight. I'm showing you it again now. It's something that he does really well, and it's something that Andy Lee has helped him to develop. And it's something that I felt would be very, very useful for Ben Whittaker in this Liam Cameron rematch. I felt it was a comparable style. And I do think that moving forward, this will be Ben Whittaker's style. A bit less showboating, a bit more substance in the movements that he's making. Things that actually help you to be defensively sound and set up shots. But the jab was working beautifully, going up, going down. I said before the fight, every time he doubled up that jab to Liam Cameron's default when he's defending is to take a lunge backwards. And because of that, every time he would have success with the lead hand, it would make Liam Cameron reset, which means he's not pouring onto you and coming into the pocket as easily. And again, just to mention that lateral movement, he was never sitting in the pocket this time, Ben Whittaker. And when he did, it would be for a few shots and then he'd get off again, get back into his lateral movement. Last fight, he was caught so many times just sitting in the pocket, just inviting pressure from Cameron, slipping one shot, staying in the pocket. This time he'd slip and he'd be on the move. He'd be pivoting out at the same time. So it was all about constant movement. And because it was so short the fight this time, it was pretty much a flawless display. He did get caught with a couple of jabs, but, you know, as they say, you can't go swimming without getting wet. And he did get a little wet, but nothing crazy. You know, a few little jabs here and there, but nothing. At no point did you feel like he was hurt or not in control of the fight. And I also mentioned there the shots around the guard, so those 3 contact points. The shots around the guard was something he used here. He was definitely firing that right hook around Liam Cameron's guard. And I felt before the fight that would be a really key shot for him. He did try it a few times on the ropes in the first fight and a couple of times in the ring, but because he was so in control of the range so early in this one, I knew that that shot would be open and available for him. You can go back and check my game film analysis on that. And those shots around the guard, those shots to the body were working really, really well for him. And he didn't get too carried away this time. He didn't have a little bit of success and rush and think, oh, I've got to blast this guy out of here right away. I need to get rid of him. It was quite the opposite this time. Everything was measured. Everything was patient. And the patience was the key. The patience is what led to the stoppage. And it was a combination of a couple of different things. So to break down the right hand that he landed that eventually led to the finish, which we will get to, what happened was, as I mentioned, those little half step back, those counter punches half steps back were what he was doing in the fight. So what he was generally doing was making Cameron fall short with his shots, but he wasn't making him pay too often. However, on this occasion, he did. Cameron still felt safe because he was moving backwards to throw those shots and overthrow them slightly because, you know, he was missing, but he wasn't being made to pay. But on this occasion, what happened was Cameron bounced his feet into range, and he does that, Liam Cameron. He'll quickly sort of shuffle his feet in, and he'll fire off his lead hand or he'll fire his backhand. Because Whittaker had been making him fall short, his default move so far in the fight had been to just take half a step back and move off at an angle. But this time what he did was, he saw the shuffle, but this time he took the half step and then he waited. He held his feet, and that is what a good counterpuncher does. He makes you fall short, and then this time he makes you fall short, but he's actually stayed a bit more in range. So what he does off of this one is he takes the half step back, anticipates the shot, he slips outside it, and he throws a beautiful right hand over the top of Liam Cameron's jab, and it lands clean. And what this right hand really told us about Ben Whittaker was that the guy does have power when he enacts patience. What I said was, in that last fight, he was hitting the gloves too much. He was hitting the guard too much, and it wasn't an effective strategy. You know, any fighter can block power. You know, if you have a good solid guard, look at Bivol against Beterbiev. Bivol was marked up, the power was insane, but the guard was enough to stop him from ever being knocked out or knocked down or even really, really hurt. You can't just punch the gloves. You've got to draw an error out of your opponent. And that's exactly what Ben Whittaker did here. The thing that I gave him criticism for in the last fight was always for leading off. I said he was leading off too much. And as a result, he's just punching gloves. He's punching fresh air. This time, he let Liam Cameron lead off, and he was waiting for what he did. He let him lead off with the jab. He slipped outside it. He punished him. That is what a counter-puncher is all about. And counter-punching is one of the best ways you can hurt your opponent. Especially when you're not the biggest puncher ever, you need to land with more precision. You need to land cleaner. There have to be better openings. So all the things I talked about before the fight really came into action here. The only thing I didn't see the wedge defense, which I said he could maybe do. But in the end, he may have done it, but it didn't even get to that. I don't think Cameron really threw too many right hands in the fight. It was a fantastic performance from Whittaker. I will take nothing away from him in terms of the tactics that he put into this fight. I thought they were absolutely on the money. And as I said before the fight, it was exactly what I would have done. What he did in this fight was perfect. And it was exactly why I thought Andy Lee would be the perfect coach. And I'm pretty gassed on my assessment of it from before the fight because it's just come together. And this is what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get it horribly wrong. But in this instance, this is exactly what I thought it would be. The one thing that did surprise me was I still wasn't sure if he had the power even when he made clean openings. But he does. He does have the power when he makes a clean opening. And I think that's been the big thing in his career so far. He's been punching through the guard. He's had guys in there who sometimes haven't been that ambitious. But he wasn't ready for the ambitious guy last fight. This time he was. And he let him, burn up in his face, basically. He let his ambition destroy him. Throwing that jab, moving into the pocket. He just counterpunched him, and it was absolutely perfect. Now, we need to talk about that stoppage. And he incorporated into that stoppage a couple of things I talked about. Those shots to the body were lovely, those bent arm shots. As I say, something that we saw throughout the fight. As long as it lasted, those bent arm shots were working for him, straight to the body. But my immediate reaction to the stoppage was it was premature. And Howard Foster has, previous with this, as we all know, Froch-Groves won. The whole Froch-Groves rivalry was essentially built off of that terrible stoppage. Of course, the clash between them, the two of them, George Groves' performance, but then that made the second fight so massive. And do I think that this was a premature stoppage is the question. I wanted to wait and see the replays. On the live stream I did, I immediately said that is definitely an early stoppage. But then I said, wait, let me check. And it's not as bad as I thought it was, but I still think it was an early stoppage because this is the thing about boxing. You can say he may have been saved from being punished, from taking damage. The dark reality of boxing is you have to let it happen to find out. That's the reality of it. And there's definitely a line where you have to go, that's too much. But I don't think we were there yet. Because what happened was the clean shot was landed. He was clearly hurt. He took another clean shot as he was moving back. And then on the ropes, Ben Whittaker landed a right hook, I believe it was, that made Liam Cameron's legs dip. And then he landed another shot to the guard. But at that point, Howard Foster was already stepping in to stop the fight. The reasons for the stoppage you can see are he's clearly hurt, he's backed up to the ropes, he's not returning fire. That's one of the key elements as to why Howard Foster would have thought it was the right thing to do. But it also has to be said that he hadn't taken a knee. He wasn't given the opportunity really to take a knee. The fact is he could have taken a knee, but he didn't. He dipped his legs and he chose to stay on his feet. He was definitely hurt though, and he didn't complain himself when the stoppage was given, so he definitely was hurt. But I don't think he was hurt enough yet to stop it for us to know definitively that it was going to go that way. And had Cameron been able to ride out that moment, Whittaker had certainly burnt a lot of gas trying to finish him. Is it the worst stoppage I've ever seen? No. But was it early? Yes. That's basically my assessment of it. But I want you guys to get in the comments section below and let me know, do you think that that was a premature stoppage? Do you think the fight should have been allowed to continue for longer than it was? The other thing we need to talk about here is the antics of Ben Whittaker after the final bell. He immediately screams, roars like a lion, runs around the ring, and ends up in Liam Cameron's corner, yelling at Grant Smith. Grant Smith's a good lad who I have a lot of respect for. He leans right out the ring and he's screaming right in his face. And the accusation was leveled at him that he spat in Grant Smith's face. Now, I didn't see the footage at the time. I've seen stills afterwards. I've seen the footage afterwards. And there is no clear evidence, as I can see, that he spat in his face. There is a chance that he did. Apparently, the cameras picked up a bit of spit flying through the air. I think, let's say he just ran over and yelled at him. I thought that was a bit classless. High emotions, of course, but emotion doesn't excuse behavior. You can explain it with emotion, but then there needs to be an apology. And I think Andy Lee did make him go over and apologize afterwards. I think we can all understand why it happened, but it doesn't mean that it's okay. I don't think it was the right thing. And I don't understand why Liam Cameron's corner took the brunt of that. Maybe they were giving Whittaker abuse before the fight that we were unaware of, but I did think it was a bit classless, to be honest with you. That said, I do understand why it happened. I'm just saying it shouldn't have happened. And we can't say definitively whether there was a spit or not. If anybody has a different angle or something to look into that with, I'm not sure if he did that. If he did spit in his face, it's absolutely horrific and despicable. His instant reaction when he was questioned about it in the ring makes me think that that's not what happened. He seemed like completely bewildered that he was asked that question and like, oh, here we go, more rubbish, more stuff being spoken about me. Andy Lee instantly jumped in to defend him. I don't think he did it, but maybe there's evidence to suggest that he did. But right now, my feeling is that maybe it was accidental. I don't think he deliberately ran over there and spat in his face. But what he did do, which was go over there and get in his face, I also don't really rate that. I don't think that was right. But again, it's not the worst thing I've seen in a boxing ring. Now, we need to talk about Andy Lee and his impact. And after the fight, they were in the ring together. And I watched the post-fight interview or bits of it, and he was very, very emotional, Ben Whittaker. You know, he was crying. He was talking about the abuse he'd suffered in the build-up to this rematch. And he kept using the phrase, getting back to the old Ben. And I had this feeling from the gloves are off that he was not that fond of what he'd done in terms of the image that he'd built for himself. It's a double-edged sword when you grow popularity on social media, when you become this controversial character. Sure, he can make money now, but what's the cost of that? The cost is that he gets a lot of abuse, and it's something that has clearly taken its toll on him mentally. Maybe he doesn't really want to be the bad guy. Maybe it doesn't suit him as well as he thought it would. But the reaction from the last fight definitely escalated things to a whole new level. And I think he pretty clearly admits that the image he'd built for himself, it kind of got away from him, and he started to buy into it, even himself, a little bit too much. All the social media stuff, all the dancing, all the humiliation of his opponents. I think that on reflection, he kind of wishes he didn't do it. That's how I feel listening to him right now. And he talked about getting over to Ireland, and he thanked his church for helping him become more grounded, and the whole experience made him more humble and more grounded. And I think he said he went over to Ireland and they were just in the gym every day, and he said he just got back to the old Ben. It sounds like he got lost in the character that he'd built. He wasn't feeling like himself, and it sounds like he got away from the hard work that won him that Olympic silver medal, and he referenced that. So I think that this is a massive wake-up call for him. I think it's given him a dose of reality to what happened in the first fight, and I think he's seen what happens when he dedicates himself now, the performance level he can put in. And I think this is going to be, and I said it might be, I think this is going to be the biggest blessing he's ever had for his career, that first fight. He didn't even lose, but it was such a warning shot for Ben Whittaker that I think he's gone away and he's got serious again, and he's ready now to go on and develop and progress in his career. And I think this will hopefully always keep him grounded now. He's had that experience that will keep him there. And better that it happened then than later on down the line. He got away with one. He really did. And that quit, worryingly, might still be in him. That's the scary thing. And I think something that's going to make Ben Whittaker super exciting in the future is I still believe there's a vulnerability to him. A bit like an Amir Khan or any of those guys, you know, that have the flashy style, the fast hands, the good looks, all that stuff. A little bit with AJ as well. You know, these guys, they have a bit of a vulnerability to them. They can be hurt, and it makes it all the more exciting. And indeed, whilst we talk about Andy Lee, I've got to mention two other things with Andy Lee that came out from this fight week and post-fight. The first thing was, I wasn't sure that Andy Lee would have had enough time to work with Ben Whittaker before the fight. But as it turned out, Whittaker revealed it just before the fight that he'd actually been working with Andy Lee a long time before they announced their partnership. So I think that was probably a big factor in why he looked so much better. You know, he had a lot of time to work with him and drill him. And then that punch as well. I said before the fight that I thought Andy Lee could help him with his power, but maybe he hadn't had enough time to make a significant difference. But then when you hear that, you realize, oh, actually, do you know what? More time, more change. And we saw that in the ring. The other thing was this debate about the weight before the fight. And that was revealed as being a tactic from Andy Lee. Ben Whittaker said that Andy's very tactical and very smart. He told us, let's arrive a little bit late, just to ruffle some feathers. And again, having that experience in your corner of the pro game with Andy Lee, someone who knows it inside out, is just helping to take the pressure off you and also devising a game plan that really works for your style, making sure the fundamentals are all sound. What a matchup it is. It's an excellent pairing. And Andy Lee, every single one of his fighters looks so good right now. And he is at the start of what is going to be an incredible career as a coach. I genuinely think that he's going to go to another level of stardom. I think that has put his career right back on track, and people will be, and rightfully so, be very, very excited about him again now. So I think Ben Whittaker has had a massive, massive turning point in his career with this one, and I think I'm really happy for him. And I said before the fight, I didn't want him to lose. I didn't want either of them to lose. I like Liam Cameron. I thought he deserved to win based on what he's been through in his life. But I also think that Ben Whittaker brings a lot to the boxing scene, especially for the UK on a global level. I think he's got the ability to go up the levels and do really well. They've just got to match him well now. So with that, we should talk about what both men should do next. Starting with Liam Cameron, he actually mentioned after the fight potentially retiring. He said, I don't know if I'm going to continue on. I think he can get another big fight now because of the controversy of the stoppage and because of the first performance. So I think he can get another domestic scrap, and he could be an interesting comeback fight for someone like a Joshua Buatsi potentially, although that might be stepping down the levels a bit too far. But there's definitely fights out there for him, that's without question. Alternatively, he'll have made a lot of money from this fight, and he may decide, you know what, I've been for a lot of my life, I've made really good money here, it's time to retire. And I wouldn't blame him if he did that either. So yeah, I think I think Liam Cameron can do what he sees as fit for himself, maybe have one or two more, or maybe retire. For Ben Whittaker, we're right at the beginning of this journey, and the matchmaking now is crucial. I think that it's another British domestic level fight I think you have with him. And the question is, what does domestic level look like? I think the two guys you're looking at are probably Craig Richards and Dan Aziz. I think those two would be very interesting. Both guys have had a few losses now to high level opposition. We know that they're both British level, and they would both develop him really well. They could even be his next two fights potentially. But I think that both of them are good enough to cause him quite a few problems as well. Might even be too much for him. Maybe they'll want to take a level down from that. But I think the level he should be looking to compete at for his next couple of fights. I think that the likes of Buatsi, and even I think Willie Hutchinson's probably a bit too good for him yet. I think Willie Hutchinson's a very, very good boxer. And because he has that similar sort of style, the flair, the moves, I think it would be an amazing build-up, and I think it's a fight they should try and build. Maybe they should get him on one of his undercards in the future to try and build that fight. But I think that's maybe in 2 or 3 fights' time. I think have another one first, consolidate the partnership with Andy Lee, consolidate his new style, and then maybe go for someone like that. I think it's too soon for the likes of Yard and Buatsi. They're at world level, so that's not there yet for me, but some really interesting fights for Ben Whittaker for sure. And I think he just needs to keep progressing now and go from strength to strength. But guys, let me know in the comments, what would you like to see next for each guy? What did you make of this performance? Was it a premature stoppage? Did you think his performance was a lot better? Because I certainly thought that it was different and better at the same time. And did you think that his behavior after the final bell wasn't really that great? Because I didn't think it was great, but I also don't think it was as bad as potentially it was being made out to be. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Please subscribe to a guy called Henry. Bang a like on the video. Get your comments in below. We've got lots of content coming this week for Eubank Jr. against Conor Ben. I will definitely be getting some stuff out for that. I am doing a game film analysis. I'm doing the preparation for it. I hope I have time to actually put it out. If I don't, at the very least, I will talk to you about all the things I'm seeing with them, and we will be making some predictions and reacting to some content in fight week. But I hope you've all enjoyed this one, and as I always say, on to the next one.